I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
For the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at kbla1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
It's thought-provoking Thursday on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Among the many things that we will discuss will be the global impact of Donald Trump's tariffs. Jose Matthews is a co-founder of the firm and based in Johannesburg, South Africa. Jose has over 30 years' experience in the public and private sector. He has lived and worked in England and the United States, as well as across Africa. Early in his career, he was at Hill & Knowlton in New York and at American Express corporate headquarters, where he was a director of state government affairs. He subsequently went to work in Washington, D.C. in the public affairs group, the law firm of Washington and Christian, where he represented governments and corporate clients. Since moving back to South Africa in 2013, Jose has served on the boards of South African Post Office and on the board of the Retirement Fund of the Post Office. In 2021, Jose was appointed by the National Assembly of South Africa as a Councillor on Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, which regulates the technology and broadcasting industry in South Africa. Jose Matthews, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Good afternoon and good evening from South Africa. Hope all is well in Chicago.
It certainly is. Also joining us is Dr. P.L. Da Silva, who has over 20 years' experience of backroom diplomacy, mediation, negotiation. He's taught politics, international relations, and several undergraduate programs at universities in New York, New Jersey, Long Island, and Queen's University of Belfast in Northern Ireland. I guess you all already know from the very outset of this program that Donald Trump's global tariffs, by the way, implemented the day after the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which means, of course, we have the power as a people to determine who the president of the United States is, and therefore the decisions that the president of the United States makes impacts the global economic world order. With that said, Dr. Da Silva, along with Jose Matthews, are our two very special contributors in the first hour of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Dr. Da Silva, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you very much.
Jose, we have about 3 minutes before we come forward. Your initial thoughts on the global impact. My producer just told me I have 4 minutes. The global impact of Donald Trump's tariffs and what they mean for the global economy.
I think it's triggering a scramble unlike anything that we have seen in the last 20 years as countries scramble either to cut a deal with the United States or see if they can find new trading partners, new trading alliances. And it's going to have a tremendous impact globally on economies ranging from Japan, South Africa, India. That its impact, I think, cannot be understated. So we are actually just we need to take out the popcorn and sit back, because clearly this movie is going to be a very long movie, but it's going to have a very depressing side effects on those of us who depend on economies globally to do business and to transact. And its impact is going to be, I think it's yet to be seen, but we can see that the U.S. may likely move into a recession as a consequence. And this is just something that will have tremendous implications for countries around the globe.
Jose, I'm a little bit concerned when you mention the word recession. And I raise that question of recession because I'm wondering if the trade deals, for example, of NAFTA that Clinton negotiated are now out. The Africa Growth and Opportunity Act now out. Trade agreements that we've historically had with India, which in light of today's announcement of, I think, a 50% tariff on certain products, particularly in the high-tech sphere from India, if it ultimately means that essentially this new world order is being redefined in real time by Donald John Trump.
Well, I think it's a serious concern. If we just look at the case of India in particular, both administrations and as most recently as President Trump himself have courted India in a very, very open manner. And now you are now going after India in a very unprecedented manner. And you're concerned about pushing India closer to China. Well, you've just done exactly that by this imposition of tariffs. So it's the uncertainty around tariffs and how they're being implemented and the foreign policy implications from the United States, which we've talked about on a previous occasion, are just creating tremendous uncertainty globally. And it often starts to look like the administration is just basically a trigger happy policy. If I don't like you, I'm going to impose tariffs. If you cozy up to another country that I don't like, well, I'm going to impose tariffs. So it's very random, and it doesn't have any systematic application of policy or policy objectives. It just seems to be very, very random, and it's dangerous, to put it mildly.
When we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, Jose Matthews, co-founder of a firm based in Johannesburg, South Africa, and Dr. P.L. De Silva are going to unpack what these tariffs mean, what the artificial intelligence regimen for the entire global economy represents, and just how devastating we might find ourselves in an American and global recession. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580, you're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, it's Matt, your leaf filter trusted pro. Gutters are an often neglected part of the home. They're also one of the most important. Clogged, overflowing gutters can cause serious problems like foundation damage or basement flooding, which can cost thousands of dollars to fix. Let's face it, cleaning gutters yourself is not only a hassle, it can be dangerous. But when you get Leaf Filter, you'll never have to worry about cleaning clogged gutters again. Get started today by visiting leaffilter.com/deal to schedule your free inspection. If you decide to move forward, we'll professionally clean, realign, and seal your gutters before installing our patented stainless steel micro mesh system. Leaf Filter keeps out everything but the water. And it's backed by a lifetime transferable no clogs warranty. So you're protected for good. We're in your neighborhood and ready to help. Visit Leaf Filter today for a free inspection and estimate, and you could save up to 30%. Visit leaffilter.com/deal. That's leaffilter.com/deal.
An official message from Medicare.
I turned 65 this year. I knew it was time to figure out Medicare, and I had questions like when to enroll and how to enroll. So I went straight to the official source, Medicare.gov, to get the facts about Medicare. I found answers to all my questions, and I'm ready to get started. And so can you. Just go to Medicare.gov to get the real facts about Medicare.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love, guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay, things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Why'd I go to the doctor? My heart would race just taking my son to practice. It didn't feel right. So I got checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We are now forward with a particular question for Dr. P.L. De Silva, who has over 20 years of experience in backroom diplomacy, mediation, and negotiation. He was also awarded the Best Adjunct Professor 2024-2025 by the School of Diplomacy and International Relations at Seton Hall University in South Orange. Dr. De Silva, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you very much. Looking forward.
Dr. De Silva, I've got to ask you to unpack for all of us what Trump's tariffs mean and what your thoughts are on how they will impact and reshape the global economy.
So from a 30,000 foot high view, I see two things happening. The United States is going to kind of more or less isolate itself, and the rest of the world, which are the majority of countries in the world, are going to coalesce and work together to ensure that globalization and free trade are going to flourish, whereas the US is going to get stymied. And as Jose Matthews said previously, the dangers of a recession in the United States are pretty large. And at some point, pretty soon, the consumers, US consumers, are going to feel the impact of price rises, from shoes to bananas, you name it. Commodity prices are going to go up because the tariff cost, the tariff burden, is going to be put on the shoulders of our, public American citizens, people who, ordinary citizens, not billionaires, but the general public. And we will see how that is going to play out in the next elections, the midterm elections in November 2025, because I'm sure people are not going to sit around and listen to fairy stories from President Trump and his people when they are being hurt on their wallets, and they can't make ends meet, can't put food on the table. The woes are tremendous, and don't forget, they want to cut Medicaid, get people who are insured off insurance. I mean, it's horrendous. It's a terrible bloodletting and a terrible destruction of the body politic of the United States. And I don't know how much longer people are going to sit back and take all this from the Republican Party and President Trump.
Dr. De Silva, let me put on my most cynical hat, and I certainly want to hear your most cynical answer. Is there any justification or any reason that these broad and far-reaching tariffs, that we might be missing something that President Donald Trump sees that none of us see? That those of you who have been experts and have wrestled with globalization issues and free and fair trade between nations for decades do not see? Or is there a more cynical consequence that we have yet to imagine as really as a global order and as a species in light of what Donald Trump is doing?
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to be the great big bully, and do a shakedown of the rest of the world. And it's not going to go down well, because people are not going to go away quietly. Especially take the Indians, for example. Okay, India has got a 50% tariff, markup on their goods that they export, especially tech goods that are being sent to the US. Immediate reaction: cancellation of any possibility of selling F-35s to India. Similarly, Canada and other countries, Spain, they are canceling their F-35 orders. So no wonder that the defense stocks are going down, because the more Trump gives pain to other countries, they're going to give back in kind by canceling orders of expensive American hardware and kit, especially in the military sector. So what cuts one way cuts the other way as well. So Trump is wielding what's called a double-edged sword. As much as he cuts other people, the sword is also cutting us in the US. So there's no free lunch for President Trump. It's going to be a bloody and a sad, sorry affair, as Jose Matthews said. It's not going to look good for people. And I think by the end of his term, we would be so happy to see the back of him, because we would have been so thoroughly sick and tired of all his nonsense, which is pretty much it. You talk to any self-respecting economist, and they'll tell you that his tariffs are nonsense. And people in Congress would tell you that it is illegal. Congress is empowered by the Constitution to determine trade policy, not the executive branch, and certainly not somebody as smart as President Trump.
Jose, you've raised some concerns about the defense stocks, the defense industry, and its consequences and the ramifications, but you also raised some significant concerns about the advent of our newest growth industry on the planet, artificial intelligence.
Absolutely. You've got essentially a free-for-all around artificial intelligence, companies vying to see who can build better, faster thinking machines that can do just about anything. And it's a major scramble that we're seeing, because it's effectively an unregulated sector. So it's operating largely as a free-for-all globally, and it really has not been subjected to a degree of scrutiny that it requires, particularly when you look at it in line with even what can be done using artificial intelligence with weapon systems. Where are the controls? How are those going to be implemented? Then take alongside that discussions around quantum technology. What are the implications of quantum technology? So we really are constantly entering uncharted technology globally around the usage, the implementation, the unregulated nature. And I'm obviously somebody who is fully supportive of the free market, open trade, unrestricted trade between countries, borders open. free market economy, absolutely. However, there has to be a certain level of regulation around certain aspects of whether it's technology or other sectors, healthcare, because utilized incorrectly, what are the consequences? So it's certainly an area which I think that we need to pay closer attention to. I know that there are discussions that do take place around it, but I think that at a certain at a certain level, there cannot be allowed to be a disconnect between what's happening in that growth, in that direction, and a lack of adequate supervision and regulation, not regulation that stifles economies and creativity and so on, because great companies have emerged from the free market, yet at the same time, we cannot allow a situation where there's absolutely no regulation and we don't know, what's happening. You look at some of the things that even Meta is doing globally, and how who's regulating that. So the question ultimately becomes who's watching the watchers, and who takes responsibility for that. And that's something that I think that certainly a degree of closer attention needs to be paid, and it's becoming more and more global as trends evolve and technology evolves. It becomes more global, and its utilization is very, very, very vast. And we don't really have any idea of just that growth at this particular point.
Jose, when I began the conversation, Dr. De Silva, I began by talking about what yesterday was, the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And in the last presidential election, we had this conversation that was too pervasive. Should we vote for Kamala Harris or should we vote for Donald Trump? We had brothers in the barbershop saying, she ain't black enough. We had others in other parts of the country saying, I'm not voting for the LGBTQ to get married. We had other people in the country saying that I'm not voting, or I am voting because women no longer have the right to choose and make decisions about their own bodies, or women do have the right to choose and make decisions about their own bodies. Whatever the confusion was at the level of a brother in a barbershop arguing over who gave them a COVID check and who signed it, the consequences of not voting in the last election are so extraordinary that it's almost impossible for the education level of the average American to fully appreciate just how powerful their vote is and what its consequences and ramifications are for the entire planet, including but not limited to the possibility that we could be looking at starvation globally on a scale that we've never seen in our lifetimes. PL.
Right. I've just come after a 2.5-hour lecture on AI and the end of humanity at NYU for the American Field Service Youth Committee. So I'd like to first speak a little bit about AI, since Jose Matthews talked about it, and then I will come back to voting rights, because voting rights are sacrosanct. It's essential. Without them, the Constitution doesn't mean anything, and you will have, the rubber barons in the White House running the show, which is what's happening now. Now, to come back to artificial intelligence, just for a minute, if you bear with me. Democracy, which is at the end of the day, what we are talking about, voting rights, democracy. The idea of truth is foundational. And if you look at the algorithms and the way that AI is functioning, the notion of a shared reality and truth are endangered. Because we now have automated, targeted, and amplified systems with, AI and the algorithms, and they are used to disrupt elections, spread ethnic hate, simulate false endorsements by world leaders, and the result is an epistemic collapse where public consensus fractures, journalism becomes suspect, and citizens no longer agree on what is real, which was the problem that we had, whether it was Trump or Harris. What is real? So these were things that were targeted, and actually, Elon Musk said so. He said, without me, Trump would have lost the elections. So what did he mean by that?
Mm.
Did they jig the elections through AI? It's a huge question to ask. And in this kind of climate, democratic governance becomes unstable and international dialogue grows fragile. So the answer to what Jose Matthews was saying, right, of what we can do is that we can ask the United Nations, we can support the United Nations to actually monitor and be a neutral arbiter and umpire, a referee, with regard to AI, how AI is used. So we need to have a global AI governance framework, which is very important, and we urgently need norms and protocols with AI transparency and auditability, algorithmic accountability. It's not all these, people in hidden offices and the tech bros with their billions running the show and calling the shots and confusing our voters. Three, responsible military uses, because warfare has changed completely, and cross-border data governance. We need to strengthen institutional resilience, which includes we have to invest our public not just only to learn about voting, but they need to have AI literacy, especially for civil servants and judges. All right. And then we need to fund public interest AI systems, open source, human aligned models. And three, we need to support ethical research and global South cooperation and participation in AI development. It should not be something that's the purview of countries in the North or the tech bros and their billions. So we need a South perspective on AI. And all of these feed back to the whole question of voting rights and what happens to our voting public.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Dr. P.L. Da Silva and Jose Matthews are our very special guests. When we come forward, more with P.L. Da Silva and Jose Matthews when we come forward.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams is expanding a student loan relief program citywide.
We're not going to sit back and allow New Yorkers to drown in debt.
Originally for city workers, the program helps federal loan borrowers access repayment and forgiveness options. Officials say it could cut payments by about $3,000 a year, offering personalized guidance through a financial assistance platform. A lawyer for Sean Diddy Combs says the rapper is planning a comeback, including a Madison Square Garden concert once he's released. Combs was convicted last month on 2 prostitution-related charges and faces up to 5 years in prison at his October sentencing. 5 soldiers are recovering after a shooting at Fort Stewart, Georgia. The suspected gunman, Sergeant Cornelius Radford, who was black, was subdued by fellow soldiers and is in custody. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Both of LA's baseball teams lost at home last night. St. Louis beat the Dodgers 5-3. Impressive night for Shohei Ohtani in the loss. He had 8 strikeouts in 4 innings on the mound and hit his 39th homer. The home run was his 1,000th hit in his 8-year career. The Angels lost to Tampa Bay 5-4. The Angels struck out 16 times and did not score after the 4th inning. The LA Sparks are back in action tonight in the WNBA. They're at home against the Connecticut Sun. The Sparks are going for their third straight win. The NFL suspended former USC wide receiver Jordan Addison for the first 3 games of the regular season. Addison, a first-round pick of the Minnesota Vikings in 2023, was suspended for violating the NFL's substance abuse policy. Addison pleaded no contest to a DUI charge in 2024. He was found asleep in his car on the 105 freeway in LA. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
You hear that? That's Mike sleeping soundly on a Sunday night. That's because Mike was smart this time. He took ZQL Ultra to fall asleep fast, stay asleep longer, and get the deeply restorative sleep he needs. So now he wakes up refreshed and ready to conquer Mondays.
Let's do this Monday.
ZQL Ultra. Not for colds, just for sleep. Really great sleep. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Some things can steal your sunshine. Ugh, I just got my hair done.
Sorry, the cooler's broken. Anyone see my flip-flops? Anyone?
But COVID-19 can steal a lot more.
I just took a COVID test. Ugh.
Prescription medications for COVID exist. If you test positive this summer, ask your doctor if they're right for you. Visit PfizerForAll.com/COVID-19 to learn more. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Are you having trouble hearing? Hearing loss can devastate the quality of your life. Now, there's an affordable fix for you or your loved one. Rated the best hearing aids of 2025 by Forbes Health, Audion Hearing has the highest quality hearing aids at the lowest prices, starting at just $98 a pair.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aids.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed.
Join over 1 million happy customers by going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
This is Joe Cordell of Cordell & Cordell. Cordell & Cordell is the largest family law firm in the country, with over 35 years of helping clients navigate divorce. That does give us certain advantages, for example, in experience and resources. But being big doesn't mean less personal or less local. Our attorneys live and work in your community, and as neighbors, they understand the challenges your families face. If you're a guy facing divorce, remember, Cordell & Cordell, a partner you can count on.
1455 Frazee, San Diego. CordellCordell.com.
The following is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways with the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit fvgradio.com. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. The proceeding is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways and not sponsored by this program or its affiliates.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson. KBLA Talk 1580. In this hour with Josie Matthews, co-founder of the firm based in Johannesburg, South Africa. Josie has over 30 years of experience in the public and the private sector. In 2021, Josie was appointed by the National Assembly of South Africa as a Councillor on Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, which regulates the technology and broadcasting the technology industry in South Africa. Dr. P.L. De Silva also joins us in this hour. Dr. De Silva is a noted historian, thinker, extremely well-traveled. He has taught politics, international relations, and several undergraduate programs at universities in New York, New Jersey, Long Island, and Queen's University of Belfast in Northern Ireland. I want to go through everyone's bio, which I will do every time they're on the program, but I want to make it clear that we get so much rich information about what's taking place in the country from these two gentlemen that I won't be able to go through their bios every single time. Dr. De Silva, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you.
Jose Matthews, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Dr. De Silva, I want to go back to this question of the vote, because many people who vote within our country, as you can imagine, may not necessarily be the most sophisticated people. They may not understand artificial intelligence. They may not understand tariffs and trade. They may not understand the inner workings of the global economy and trading system, of course. But in a real sense, even the average third grade, eighth grade, or 12th grade educated American, when they do cast their vote, the consequences and the ramifications of the decisions that they make can be found inside of the stomach of a poor child in Somalia. It could manifest itself in Delhi.
Yes.
It could manifest itself anywhere in the world. And the consequences of not being a literate voter are so extraordinary that it's almost incapable of fathoming just how powerful that vote truly is. Dr. De Silva?
Right. So the question that I was alluding to is how AI is misused by the tech bros, the tech billionaires who supported Donald Trump in particular, and I would say facilitated his victory. And how does this happen? It's misinformation and the erosion of truth. AI generated texts, images, videos, deepfakes make falsehoods easier to create, personalize, and scale. The institutional impact is that journalism, okay, the general media loses credibility as fake news becomes indistinguishable from real news. Number two, the courts may be misled by forged evidence or deepfakes. And number three, and most importantly for us, elections can be swayed by AI-generated propaganda or micro-targeted disinformation. This has been happening in the United States. It's difficult to put your finger on it, but it is happening. And it is certainly impacting on the voter base. So how do we take this insidious threat to democracy? And that's the thing. So it's not good enough to get out the vote. We also need to counter this kind of disinformation and fake news, which also is dividing us, our society. We used to have bipartisan policy decisions and politics. We don't have that anymore. It's been broken up. And these are some of the things that happens when you allow technology, and you don't even see it happening, but it's happening to us every single day. We are consuming it every day. And that's the problem. And in order to counter that, you need to have a movement. And the civil rights movement needs to be cognizant and needs to be educated with regard to AI. They need to be AI savvy to be able to spot these things and to be able to have a concerted campaign to counter AI disinformation, misinformation, and the spread of hate among communities. It's very, very important. Otherwise, democracies, not just only in the United States, are imperiled in this age of demagogues. Because when you break all these things up, it's only the demagogues who are going to benefit from these things. And Trump is a clear case. He's a demagogue who has benefited from the divisions and the frictions in society. And they make trouble out of small things. small issues, but every day it's some issue. And ever since he's been elected, there is one issue after another, and it is just horrendous.
Let me turn to Jose Matthews, whose family in South Africa earned their bona fides in the struggle to end apartheid. His family has fought authoritarianism and totalitarianism in South Africa. He has campaigned across the United States with Reverend Jesse Jackson in 1984 and 1988, so he understands the national electoral system that is the voting system here in the United States. He's also worked senatorial as well as congressional campaigns throughout the United States. Jose, you know the average age of a voter and their basic understanding in the United States based upon their education, the way in which, as Dr. P.L. De Silva has indicated, information is disseminated to them, particularly in this social media environment of half-truths, of untruths. But still, we've persevered. You've been part of the perseverance movements in the United States to be able to recognize that people power against these billionaire oligarchs and Johnny Mack and Dr. Aubrey Hendricks called the Trump administration last week and earlier this week just plain evil. If the people themselves don't rise up, our democratic system just doesn't have a chance. Mr. Matthews?
Well, I think that's absolutely right. And if we look at the history of South Africa and how democracy was achieved, it was very, very much led by the people and led by individuals who understood the importance of democracy, the importance of the vote, and how critical it was for everyday rank and file people to be involved. Of course, the dynamics have changed substantially because there are different levels of how information is now disseminated and reaches to the electorate. And we are now in a world where the information that is just coming, even at young voters who are just entering voting age, 18, university age, there is just so much information that's being disseminated and directed at them that very often, or if you take South Africa as an example, so the period from 1994 to 2024, where students or anyone born after 1994 who does not really acknowledge the significance and importance of Nelson Mandela or what it took to achieve just that one vote, the significance of Dr. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Jesse Jackson, that one vote, voter registration. So it has changed to the extent that people are so divorced from that struggle and what that struggle achieved to get to this point to where we are, that they just rely on very, very superficial information, which is exactly what Dr. De Silva is talking about, where they are information utilization of algorithms to reach people, and largely that information is very, very, very much false. So we have to try to see how we protect democracy, how we educate democracy, and how we make sure that the electorate, and the vast majority of whom are not oligarchs, do not go to Aspen over Thanksgiving, do not go to the Bahamas or to St. Bart's after December for the December holidays, or fly around in a Bombardier jet or a Gulfstream. Take the public transport every day to go to work. My great mentor used to say they work in these hotels where the five-star hotels people stay in, get in the public transport to go back home late at night, and then start all over their shift the next day. That's the people that we need to reach out to.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least liked to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach, transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal, prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
The following is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways with the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit fvgradio.com. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. The proceeding is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways and not sponsored by this program or its affiliates.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Looking forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guests in this hour are Jose Matthews and Dr. P.L. De Silva. Gentlemen, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. show.
Thank you very much.
I just asked our producer a few moments ago if we can try and find a way to have just a global blowout with both you and Mr. Matthews, Dr. De Silva, once a month, just the full 2 hours, because we need to cover the entire planet. And I think that the time and the space with which events are taking place, not only in the United States, but around the world, are so extraordinary that I just feel like we're inching along in the brief conversations that we do have. An hour really just is not long enough to download even a small 1% of the information that you have to share with all of us. Dr. De Silva, let me come back to this idea with Jose and with you more specifically about people power. So democracy becomes the real check, the idea of, regardless of your education, the fact that you have a vote in this system, not just the American system, but in India and other systems around the world. It really becomes a check against AI. It becomes a check against the oligarchs. It becomes a check against corruption if the people can amass the same spirit, energy, common unity, community, agreement that something has to be done to preserve the basic rights of human beings. It's the only check that we have. It's the only thing that we have where we come together in any given cycle in any different country around the world to make a statement on our expectations of what we expect government to deliver for us. Dr. De Silva.
What we need is a new civil rights movement, which brings in tech-savvy young people. Because without tech-savvy young people, we are going to be hard-pressed to take on the tech bros and their billions and their AI algorithms and all of this fake news and disinformation and division that they are spreading. The only way is we need to get organized, and our lifeblood are young, tech-savvy people. If you look around anywhere you go, you will find a young person looking at their phone. It goes without saying that they are tech-savvy, okay? They are producers and consumers of social media. And if we are unable to stand and fight, as much as Rosa Parks did in person, and all the other great leaders that we've had, from your dear father, Reverend Jesse Jackson, to Martin Luther King, and all the other great people, Nelson Mandela in South Africa, Mahatma Gandhi in India and South Africa. But that was a different era. We need to get up to speed with what is happening today in this fast-paced world where, you know, it's unbelievable. If you look at the quantum computing and all of these things, you know, by the time we have thought about it, it's already happened. So we need to be up to speed to compete with these people.
Jose, when Dr. De Silva, you know, when I think about these tech-savvy civil rights activists, human rights activists that you're talking about that we need to bring forward, I'm saying to myself that in this hour, Jose, the Department of Justice, the FBI, Senator Cornyn, has now sought the help of the FBI in chasing down state legislators in the state of Texas who are trying to keep congressional districts and state senatorial districts and state representative districts from being redrawn. I mean, certainly our civil rights, human rights, tech-savvy bros who Dr. De Silva is envisioning and trying to bring forward organizationally would find themselves under similar scrutiny in this environment. Mr. Matthews, Dr. De Silva?
Well, imagine if President Mandela was sending our equivalent of the FBI to start chasing down lawmakers. What would be the reaction globally if he had perpetrated such an act in full violation of his constitutional oath of office, or any president for that matter, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, or suddenly King Charles III decides to start behaving like Oliver Cromwell? What an outcry you would see. Yet it's now normal in the United States. It's accepted that you can actually threaten lawmakers duly elected by their constituents in their districts to serve in the Texas state legislature, that they can be actually threatened with arrest, or even a judge for that matter can be arrested and detained. Imagine that happening. You're reading about that in the Washington Post, that had happened in South Africa, that a judge of the Constitutional Court had been arrested because they wrote a judgment, which happened, in fact, to President Zuma. President Zuma didn't lock up one judge. He accepted that ruling that was handed down by Chief Justice Mogoeng against the president. President Mandela came and testified in court in a case involving a very well-known businessman, Louis Late. He came and put himself before the court process and accepted that the Constitution in South Africa is supreme. But it seems that the U.S., which fought for its freedom against the dictates of George III, is now sliding backwards into very much uncharted territory.
Dr. De Silva, we have about 3 minutes before we close. I'd like to split that time evenly for a word of hope from you and from Mr. Matthews.
Okay. We have to fight 2025. The people who are the architects of Project 2025, because that is so insidious for this country. And the hope for us is that our young people will rise to the occasion. Our people who have democratic beliefs and hope for the future, for all peoples to live equally without rancor. We need to do that. We need to get these people out of our system, and we need to do it fast. And despite all the ivory towers and where they are all hiding and creating all this chaos and mayhem, we, the people, have the right and the capability to stand up, be counted, and defeat them.
Mr. Matthews, about 1 minute and 30 seconds.
No, I still believe that there is hope. The United States is still a great country, and still a lot that can be achieved in the United States, but it's going to take very, very hard work, and not just in the US, globally. I don't think that we can single out the US by any means. Globally, there are still a lot of situations that do require the involvement of everyday people and very good ethical and moral leadership. And thank you for having me on the show.
Jose, you're always welcome. And Dr. De Silva, I look forward to having you all back on the show in the not too distant future.
Thank you.
I think on the 3rd, I'm going to do everything within my power to try and find us a 2-hour slot so that we can really, really unpack the planet. But I am so grateful for your contribution, and it's just extraordinary. Gentlemen, once again, thank you for joining the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Dr. De Silva, Jose Matthews are our regular contributors on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. They pull us out of our provincialism, out of being domestic, to see the entire world, what the consequences of who we elect, why we elect them, are far much broader and bigger than our neighborhoods. When we come forward, this is Thoughtful Thursdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward with Johnny Mack.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams is expanding a student loan relief program citywide.
We're not going to sit back and allow New Yorkers to drown in debt.
Originally for city workers, the program helps federal loan borrowers access repayment and forgiveness options. Officials say it could cut payments by about $3,000 a year, offering personalized guidance through a financial assistance platform. A lawyer for Sean Diddy Combs says the rapper is planning a comeback, including a Madison Square Garden concert once he's released. Combs was convicted last month on 2 prostitution-related charges and faces up to 5 years in prison at his October sentencing. 5 soldiers are recovering after a shooting at Fort Stewart, Georgia. The suspected gunman, Sergeant Cornelius Radford, who was black, was subdued by fellow soldiers and is in custody. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Both of LA's baseball teams lost at home last night. St. Louis beat the Dodgers 5-3. Impressive night for Shohei Ohtani in the loss. He had 8 strikeouts in 4 innings on the mound and hit his 39th homer. The home run was his 1,000th hit in his 8-year career. The Angels lost to Tampa Bay 5-4. The Angels struck out 16 times and did not score after the 4th inning. The LA Sparks are back in action tonight in the WNBA. They're at home against the Connecticut Sun. The Sparks are going for their 3rd straight win. The NFL suspended former USC wide receiver Jordan Addison for the first 3 games of the regular season. Addison, a first-round pick of the Minnesota Vikings in 2023, was suspended for violating the NFL's substance abuse policy. Addison pleaded no contest to a DUI charge in 2024. He was found asleep in his car on the 105 freeway in LA. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
For the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at kbla1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to Thought-Provoking Thursdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show with none other than Dr. Johnny Mack. Johnny Mack is the principal and managing partner of the Johnny Mack Group, LLC, and the founding director of the World House Project, Inc. Well-traveled throughout the Americas, Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, explicating Dr. King's call to restructure the social edifice and its triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism with a revolution of values that are effected throughout peaceable power, building communities without boundaries, welcoming so many people into the idea of a world house. Johnny, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse. You know, I enjoy being here.
Johnny, I'm so grateful that you are here. This is one of our most popular shows throughout the week. Johnny, let me share with you this. I feel like with the announcement of these global tariffs, based upon our contributors in the last hour, that the President of the United States has essentially flown a plane into the World House and has everyone all over the world scrambling. So I turned to one of my favorite books written by Dr. King called Strength to Love. And in the final chapter, he has in chapter 13 a sermon titled The Answer to a Perplexing Question. And the scripture he uses comes from Matthew 17, verse 9. Why could not we cast him out? I just want to read part of that to you. Human life throughout the centuries has been characterized by man's persistent efforts to remove evil from the earth. Seldom has man thoroughly adjusted himself to evil, for in spite of his rationalizations, compromises, and alibis, he knows the is not the ought, and the actual is not the possible. Though the evils of sensuality, selfishness, and cruelty often rise aggressively in his soul, something within him tells him that there are intruders and reminds him of his higher destiny and more noble allegiance. Man's hankering after the demonic is always disturbed by his longing for the divine. As he seeks to adjust to the demands of time, he knows that eternity is his ultimate habitat. When man comes to himself, he knows that evil is a foreign invader that must be driven from the native soils of his soul before he can achieve moral and spiritual dignity. But the problem that has always hampered man has been his inability to conquer evil by his own power. In pathetic amazement, he asks, "Why can I not cast it out? Why can I not remove evil from my life?" And I'd like to pose the question to you, Dr. Mack. Why cannot we remove evil from the world and from our space? It is now in our world house. I think Dr. Mack just froze on me.
I think we both froze, Jesse. Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir. I can now. I'm sorry.
I didn't get the last part of your question. The first part was, however, from our world. Particularly the Christian church has been working on that question
for 2,025 years.
For its entire existence, okay? So I guess in the next 20 minutes, maybe in the next 20 seconds, I have to come up with the answer. But let's seriously explore something about Dr. King's statement and King himself. Remember, of course, Jesse, that King was a faith leader. He was a man of tremendous faith. And he believed not only in the eternal God, but in that God likeness of humanity itself. And so when King made such statements as you've just read regarding this perplexing question, he also made statements about the arc of the universe, which we talked about last week. And so I think, in part, the answer to your question, why can't we expel evil, is perhaps using that metaphor of the ark. And Jesse, I think we recognized last week that the arc of the universe is not something so abstract and remote from humanity that we can't effect that arc, that we can't bend that arc. And in fact, I think King's hope for humanity is that each and every one of us would grab hold of the end of that arc and we would pull it toward justice. In the same regard, his hope was, when it comes to evil, that each and every one of us would look at evil and say, it cannot stand, it can't be a part of the social framework, of the systems and processes that govern our lives. And so he called, as we've also recalled, for a revolution of values, which would be the means by which we would bend the arc.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA 1580. Our very special guest, Johnny Mack. We are discussing the World House on Thought-Provoking Thursdays. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. and the great Johnny Mack as we seek to answer the perplexing question: why can we, man and woman, not drive out evil from our midst? Why can we not remove it from the earth? When we come forward, more with Johnny Mack.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, it's Matt, your leaf filter trusted pro. Gutters are an often neglected part of the home. They're also one of the most important. Clogged, overflowing gutters can cause serious problems like foundation damage or basement flooding, which can cost thousands of dollars to fix. Let's face it, cleaning gutters yourself is not only a hassle, it can be dangerous. But when you get Leaf Filter, you'll never have to worry about cleaning clogged gutters again. Get started today by visiting leaffilter.com/deal to schedule your free inspection. If you decide to move forward, we'll professionally clean, realign, and seal your gutters before installing our patented stainless steel micro mesh system. Leaf Filter keeps out everything but the water. And it's backed by a lifetime transferable no clogs warranty. So you're protected for good. We're in your neighborhood and ready to help. Visit Leaf Filter today for a free inspection and estimate, and you could save up to 30%. Visit leaffilter.com/deal. That's leaffilter.com/deal.
Why'd I go to the doctor? My heart would race just taking my son to practice. It didn't feel right. So I got checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
An official message from Medicare.
I turned 65 this year. I knew it was time to figure out Medicare, and I had questions, like when to enroll and how to enroll. So I went straight to the official source, Medicare.gov, to get the facts about Medicare. I found answers to all my questions, and I'm ready to get started. And so can you. Just go to Medicare.gov to get the real facts about Medicare.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. show, where on Thursdays we discuss the World House on Thoughtful Thursdays with Dr. Johnny Mack. Johnny, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. show.
Thank you, Jesse.
Johnny, just before we came forward, we were talking about just briefly the triple evils of racism, poverty, of militarism. I look at the president's global tariff regime. There's a map in the New York Times this morning that shows that this global regime of tariffs profoundly impact the darker people of the earth, from Africa to India to Brazil. We look at the price of stocks with military goods also significantly dropping as a result. And I'm going to save it for a completely another day. That most of my life, maybe 50 years of my 60 years of life, we have spent trillions of dollars building up weapons of mass destruction and the most sophisticated military on earth in preparation for a war with Russia. A war that does not look like it's going to happen. In fact, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are now coming to terms on the idea of having a summit in coming days. But the overwhelming brown people who have sticks and stones, bows and arrows, have no navies, no air forces, are now on the receiving end of America's bombs and the power of its extraordinary military. Dr. King, I believe, Johnny, must have seen this in Vietnam.
Indeed. And Jesse, I'm sure you know his 1967 sermon, just a year before his assassination, almost to the day. His critique of that war and the injustices of that war and those who perpetrated the war speak directly to how he saw the world and those injustices. And of course, King, again, wanted to see a new world order. He called for a new world order. And he recognized how unjust the then current order was. And Jesse, the current world order is just as unjust. That is, the injustice of the values and the systems and processes that are currently being used to refashion this world order continue to marginalize, frankly, people of color, and particularly the southern half of the global hemisphere. The question is, what can be done about it?
Breaking news, Netanyahu's plan to reoccupy Gaza is the key to the far right's goal of taking over Gaza and the West Bank and forcing Palestinians out. Meanwhile, Trump is making the United States a subcontractor in this operation. U.S. taxpayers should not be funding what amounts to ethnic cleansing by another name. Your thoughts on the idea from Chris Van Hollen, United States Senator Chris Van Hollen. That is what he has posted to his social media accounts.
Wow, to have Van Hollen post that tells us a great deal. The question, Jesse, it goes back to what do we do about it? But before, even speaking to that, I've always felt that the current phase of the crisis between Israel and Palestine and Palestinians and Israelis was all about land. And it didn't take long to realize that the way this war has been prosecuted by Netanyahu, it's not so much about eliminating Hamas. It's about grabbing land. And I think we're seeing the full manifestation of that in this latest announcement that you've just read.
I find something particularly puzzling because I have a lot of friends that are evangelicals. Yes, I'm a liberation theology guy. I'm grown up an African-American Baptist. Clay Evans was my pastor, and Reverend James Meeks is the present shepherd of my soul. So I grew up on our side of town, right? Yeah, but I do want to address this issue that, it's been 2,025 years. We've been waiting for the return of Jesus. They say that Jesus, when he comes back, will come back to Israel, that he's going to come back to Palestine, Israel proper. He will be born again, I guess, in Bethlehem. These are brown people who occupy this land and have occupied this land for centuries. So here's my thinking, Johnny. What's going on in the Middle East comfortably fits the Netanyahu narrative with the evangelical narrative that we must make room for the return of Jesus. Now, of course, the return of Jesus ain't supposed to be no brother, ain't supposed to be brown, ain't supposed to be no Arab. So they have to push their way all the way to Bethlehem in order to produce for us something we have never seen before, other than in the imagination of the Renaissance artists who drew a blue-eyed, blonde-haired Jesus of Nazareth. Oh, they're going to bring him back now. They're going to bring him back, but they're not going to bring him back in his truest manifestation, for which the Gospels itself has referred to how he should have looked. Somehow these two stories are coming together in this present behavior, Johnny.
Well, the way you juxtapose them is quite correct. Do they bring him back, or does he come back? Whatever your religious orientation, of course, there are other points of view about Jesus of Nazareth and about the uncaused cause, as we've talked before. But staying on point, Jesse, does it require Netanyahu and the far right to bring Jesus back, or does Jesus come back as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, as the champion of the downtrodden and the least of these? There's quite a dissonance and a contradiction as you've juxtaposed these two visions of how Jesus of Nazareth would return. And I don't think that the idea that he'll return on the wheels of a Tesla is quite the answer, Jesse.
You know, Johnny, I remember something that Martin Luther King Jr. said about Gandhi and Gandhi's significance on the world, and his thinking and the practical nature of his own theological development and philosophy. He said that the world not only needed Gandhi, if it did not have Gandhi, it would have had to have created Gandhi, because the circumstances of human history required the intervention of a Gandhi type figure in human history. I think the same case could be made of Martin Luther King Jr. And since the inception of this program, I have always asked the question, and I've asked it of you, but I'd like to see if your position has changed in any way. Why has the white community, why have white evangelicals not been able to create a Martin Luther King Jr. type figure in their space?
Well, I'm not quite sure that any ethnic group can create a king. I think a king emerges out of the circumstances. I think a king is born out of the press of human need, wherever it comes from, whichever group it comes from. I think that the movement, the modern civil rights movement, created King. And he rose to the occasion. And so for me, Jesse, the question is, who will rise to the occasion from whichever racial or ethnic group to the critical time that we live in today? For me, it matters not what race or religion or any other human characteristic that we might assign. The question is, which one of us, or how many of all of us, will rise to the occasion?
I think that's a moment of reflection for me, that, I have so identified the causes for which we stand for to be so moral and so just, and our approach, of course, nonviolent, that I do make assumptions about our capacity to produce that kind of unique leader. Now, I don't make any false assumptions about the idea that Martin Luther King Jr. is the sum total of every human experience at the moment of his ministry. That's just how deep, heavy, and unique he is. But I think at the same time, Johnny, you are the sum total of human history in this moment. I think I am the sum of human history in this moment. Even in that movie, The Amistad, in that court case, Joseph Cinque, as offered to us by the actor, was asked by John Adams about being in the courtroom and whether or not he felt he would be under pressure. And the actor responded, "I will not be by myself. I will be there because I am the manifestation of every member of my family since the inception of time itself. In this moment, I'm fighting for my freedom. I am the sum, and they will all be there with me that day when a decision is made about my life." And so the sum of American life, of privilege, of white privilege, I would argue that Howard Thurman might argue that these are not a people who've known their backs against the wall, that they have not known oppression, and therefore there is an incapacity to create this great empath who would walk amongst us, passing out forgiveness, mercy, pardon, love, justice, who would make crooked ways straight, who would build affordable housing, who would provide health care for all Americans, who would provide education to the ignorant, multicultural education, multiple languages to the ignorant, and multiple and a broad understanding as a result of the fact that he or she came our way.
You know, Jesse, I as I listen to you, I hear King's commanding voice whispering in my ear as he stands at the Lincoln Memorial, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics. King was the consummate cosmopolitan. He was the consummate visionary of a beloved community. He was the consummate idealist of a world house where we all live together as brothers and sisters, or we perish as fools. And so I think that what we look for in terms of leadership, in terms of examples, in terms of people who see right and stand for right, like the needle to the pole, as one author wrote, is what our time really calls for. And I go back to my last statement that which one of us and how many of all of us will answer that call?
I think that Dr. King was certainly a man of his time. And I've met with young people who are feeling the courage and the weight of this moment. And I am deeply concerned that as they rise to this moment, that the journey that they will travel will be a very, very dangerous road. I am profoundly concerned that this may not be the non-violent period in American history that we've longed for, but due to misunderstanding, not due to a conspiracy, not due to an outward movement against my neighbor, but that things are triggered by lack of understanding and just outright human ignorance and stupidity. I would have never encouraged or supported anyone to do or take a shot at Donald John Trump, not because he's someone I politically disagree with. I just don't think it is wrong. I just think it's wrong. I just don't think we can justify it. But I do think that we have an obligation to do the very best that we can to come together. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. In this hour, Johnny Mack is our very special guest.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Emergency repairs are underway at Tampa, Florida's 124-year-old Jackson rooming house after part of it collapsed. Foundation Chair Carolyn Collins says they have to move quickly.
This is just going to be a bracing of the house to secure the house so that the house will be safe.
Once a safe haven for Black travelers during segregation, the site is now being prepped for long-term restoration. Salt and Peppa are taking legal action against Universal Music Group over the rights to their master recordings. The duo says UMG violated copyright law by refusing to return their music after decades and called it unfair to still be bound by a 1985 contract. And the Albany Black Chamber of Commerce in New York is receiving $600,000 to make its building more accessible. The chamber has supported Black and minority-owned businesses since 2022. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Chronic migraine, 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more, can make me feel like a spectator in my own life.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. It's not for those with 14 or fewer headache days a month. It's the #1 prescribed branded chronic migraine preventive treatment.
Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Why wait? Ask your doctor, visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com, or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
If you're an adult in need of an accredited high school diploma, the Los Angeles Public Library can help. You could earn one for free in as few as 5 months, online, with 24/7 access. You also get a personal academic coach, plus special training focused on 9 in-demand industries, as well as a resume and cover letter to advance your career. Visit the website at lapl.org/diploma. That's lapl.org/diploma.
You hear that? That's Mike sleeping soundly on a Sunday night. That's because Mike was smart this time. He took ZQL Ultra to fall asleep fast, stay asleep longer, and get the deeply restorative sleep he needs. So now he wakes up refreshed and ready to conquer Mondays.
Let's do this Monday.
ZQL Ultra. Not for colds, just for sleep. Really great sleep. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Some things can steal your sunshine.
Ugh, I just got my hair done.
Sorry, the cooler's broken. Anyone see my flip-flops? Anyone?
But COVID-19 can steal a lot more.
I just took a COVID test. Ugh.
Prescription medications for COVID exist. If you test positive this summer, ask your doctor if they're right for you. Visit PfizerForAll.com/COVID-19 to learn more. Sponsored by Pfizer.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Dr. Johnny Mack is our very special guest, where on Thought-Provoking Thursdays, we discuss the world house. Dr. Mack's work includes peace, conflict, social change, and movements. His seminal research work, After Confrontation, Then What?, seeks to rearticulate nonviolence beyond the traditional idea of direct resistance to a meta-logic that includes direct, structural, and cultural nonviolence, each having its own form of social action. Dr. Mack, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse.
Dr. Mack, I'd like to answer in part what Dr. King went through in that chapter. He said that too many of us essentially rely upon God to do everything while we do nothing. And he said that's not faith, that's superstition. He then said, too often, as Jesus did with the disciples, man has relied upon his own power to bring about the very transformation that Dr. King desired and you desire in the World House. But then he answers the question this way. What then is the answer to life's perplexing question? How can evil be cast out from our individual and collective lives? If the world is not to be purified by God alone, nor by man alone, who will do it? The answer is found in an idea that is distinctly different from the two we have discussed. For neither God nor man will individually bring the world's salvation. Rather, both man and God, made in a marvelous unity of purpose, through an overflowing love as the free gift of himself on the part of God, and by perfect obedience and receptivity on the part of man, can transform the old into the new and drive out the deadly cancer of sin. He then concludes, herein we find the answer to the perplexing question. Evil can be cast out, not by man alone, nor by a dictatorial God who invades our lives, but when we open the door and invite God through Christ to enter. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him and he with me. God is too courteous to break down the door. But when we open it in faith, believing, a divine and human confrontation will transform our sin-ruined lives into radiant possibilities. Johnny, is that still possible?
Well, I think that Christian vision is marvelous. And I think King's message is that the Christian will take hold of that vision in their faith in God. And I think his clarion call to every Christian is to believe in that vision and in that and the God of that vision. And I think that belief translates into a commitment, and that's where King is saying it won't be just God alone or just man alone, but the nexus of God and man, the cooperation of God and man. And so I think in the Christian experience, Jesse, one has to believe, of course it's possible. Or what good would the religion be otherwise?
I am reminded upon a reflection from the Master when he offered a course of action. Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. And so there seems to be a humility and a timidity and a very quiet approach. If I think about the behavior of sheep and wolves, if you're sending me out as a sheep in the midst of wolves, maybe I should go around the wolves. Maybe I should wait till the wolves move on. It doesn't sound like wolves and sheep should lay down together, but it does suggest that there is a certain wisdom in the approach, a certain strategic moment in the approach by which the faith itself compels us to act. It compels us to act in a way that is consistent with the highest standards of our moral conscience and our beliefs. We must act.
And is consistent with the standards of the faith itself, right? Summarized in the 10 Commandments alone. But Jesse, there was a book written many years ago that I've never forgotten its title, and it's something like Everything I needed to learn in life, I learned in kindergarten or something like that. right? How to treat other people. All we really need to know in life in order to create the kind of world that honors the dignity and worth and the freedom and liberty and the solidarity and community required for humans to live as brothers and sisters in the world house, we learn in kindergarten. Just the basic treat others like you want to be treated. Don't touch what is not yours. Don't take what is not yours. Be kind in the way that you want others to be kind to you. Just basic human principles. It's not rocket science. And somehow we've lost that. Even when you think about the new technologies, you were talking about the new technologies in the hour before I came on, and how ominous they are if we don't put controls around them. And that's the revolution of values that King was talking about. If we build AI and use quantum computing and whatever comes after those two in creating our future world, if we infuse them with those basic values that we learned in kindergarten, or the values that King talked about in his 1956 treatise on the 1959 treatise or speech on the ethical demands of integration. Those simple, basic values of dignity and liberty and solidarity or community. What we can accomplish as humanity in creating a just and peaceful world is limitless, isn't it?
I think it is, but I was listening to Dr. De Silva in the last hour, and he talked about some of the dangers of AI. And this past week, Donald Trump offered an executive order, essentially an edict that said that the government nor the private sector should be pursuing any kind of algorithms that recognize diversity, equity, and inclusion, or that talk about Black history, or that certainly suggests that there are certain moral values that we as a society hold as the fundamental tenets of the civilization itself. These are obviously very scary times because we have these individual actors in our history, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela. We have these luminaries and these figures, but we're not producing them on the scale that artificial intelligence will be educating people without basic core values that you suggest, Dr. Mack, begin in kindergarten.
So Jesse, we live in the United States in a democracy, we are told, we like to believe, a democracy of representative government, not direct, but representative. That is, those who represent us should also represent our values, our expectations, and our aspirations for the kind of world that we want. So when we say that a man called Donald interprets the Constitution in ways that suit his view of the presidency, we're also saying that he represents the will of the people. And is that true? Again, we have to rise to the occasion. We, the people. My biggest problem with what we see in the media about what Trump does or does not do is we allow our president, we allow our elected representatives to do what they do. And when we have had enough, then we can change that.
Johnny? I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, more with Johnny Mac.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Warning, the IRS is in full collection mode for 2025, and no one with tax debt is safe. If you owe back taxes or haven't filed, liens, levies, garnishments, they're coming fast and without warning. Your paycheck, gone. Your bank account, frozen. Your assets, seized. But there's still time. If you act now, call Republic Tax Relief, the trusted team that knows how to fight. Veteran-owned and proudly A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. They bring the grit and experience to stand up to the IRS and win. The IRS Fresh Start programs are still available. The programs can reduce or even eliminate your tax debt. If you're living check to check, and most of us are, then call, because this is your chance to breathe again. It only takes 5 minutes to find out if you qualify. The call is free, but if you wait, it could cost you everything. Call now before the IRS calls you. 800-259-4546. That's 800-259-4546. Find out if you qualify today. 800-259-4546 or go to republictaxrelief.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah. The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
If you didn't think skipping breakfast was a big deal, you'd be right. Before. But now, Wendy's has Buck Biscuits. We're talking sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit, bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit, or even the Honey Buddy chicken biscuit for just $1 each. Seriously, you can get all three if you want. They're just $1, so you'll never skip breakfast again. If you're smart. Breakfast for $1? Gotta be Wendy's.
Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Limit 5 qualifying items per transaction. Not valid in a combo while supplies last.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., and welcome back to thoughtful, thought-provoking Thursdays with Dr. Johnny Mac, who's the principal and managing partner of the Johnny Mac Group, LLC, and founding director of the World House Project, Inc. Dr. Mac, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse, very much. It's good to be here.
Johnny, I never really get a chance to, first of all, thank you for your extraordinary contribution to our show, but there's probably so much more that you want to talk about and share with us that the hour itself does not yield us the opportunity to cover. So there's about 9 minutes left in this show. And what I'd like to do, Johnny, is just read something to you from John Quincy Adams. The law given from Sinai was a civil and a municipal, as well as a moral and religious code. It contained many statutes of universal application laws exerted to the existence of men in society, most of which have been enacted by every nation which ever professed any code of laws. Johnny, there's so much in the World House that you've envisioned, and I don't know anyone who's envisioned it more than you and kept this idea of a World House alive more than you have. Share with us your thoughts on what the next steps are in our evolution to a higher calling, a higher level of civilization, and a higher level of human existence.
Well, Jesse, you know, the world house that we have today is the one we built yesterday.
Mm.
And until we have the necessary confrontation with what we've done as a human race with yesterday, the world house of tomorrow will be the same.
Mm.
Said differently, we are what we are today because of what happened yesterday. And until we have the necessary confrontation with yesterday, our tomorrows will forever be the same. And we have to have a confrontation with the decisions that we made yesterday as a human race. King asked the question, where do we go from here? Implied in that question is, well, how did we get here in the first place?
Mm.
And if we don't answer that question, then how do we really analyze and correct the faulty foundations of our social edifice? And so those are the next steps in creating a world house where we live in peace and justice, I think, Jesse.
Johnny, there is so much yesterday to confront.
Mm.
I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I have I have volumes of yesterday, and I don't know how to wrap my minds around the prologue of the past.
Mm.
And do it in such a way as that the footing for the present or for tomorrow, recognizing something that I hadn't given much thought to until I heard it from you last week, that everyone is in time. This time cannot be repeated by anyone except for those of us who are in it. We are in time.
Mm-hmm.
But we are in time, as you brilliantly stated last week, over time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So all of this over stuff is the volumes of our lives and the volumes of history that we bring to the present moment in time. And from that discernment, from that space comes the energy to change the linear system or to change the trajectory
Mm-hmm.
of where humanity is going.
Yeah. Yeah. So, of course, keep in mind that the wise sage who said, if we forget the past, we're doomed to repeat it, right?
Mm.
So, this notion of end time and overtime is understanding the tools that we have and the strategies that we use to create the kind of world house we want. And the context of end time and overtime was about social action. And too much, I think we argued last week, of our social action is in time, and we forget its consequences over time. That's the point. And King admonished us that we must find new ways and means of thinking about nonviolence and how it is applied. And we have simply spent too much time in time, and maybe even in the past, without thinking about how over time it takes to bend that arc of the universe. And he calls for this reordering of the social system because he recognizes that it is through that system that we create that helps us to bend the arc. That we are products of our social edifice. We inform it and it forms us. As a virtuous relationship, reciprocal relationship between the social edifice and our interaction with it. And so we must find ways to rebuild the social edifice. Education, for example, our education system, our social systems, how we provide for the least of these. Problem is, Jesse, that's happening right now, as we pointed out, I think last week and the week before. The social order is being changed as we speak. The problem is the wrong group of people are changing it. And a revolution of values is occurring, but they're the wrong set of values. Please, Jesse.
No, is it even possible though? I mean, the damage that is being done is so great that, you know, I'm turning in my own way to every brother and sister who decided to sit the process out. I mean, they were tired of hearing about John Lewis and Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, and all of the guilt trip stuff from the movement that we would drop on them wasn't enough for them to be able to appreciate that over time, in the moment, we are in time. But do you have any idea how catastrophic the future can be? Johnny, we don't have much time, but it is your time.
It is my time. So, Jesse, one more time, may I say?
We have about 2 minutes.
I've said before, yes, the task is daunting, but I'm reminded of my good friend Martin Luther King III, with whom I've worked many, many years. Often says that it only takes a few good women and men. When you think about the modern civil rights movement, it was just a few good women and men who catalyzed a movement. Just a few good women, especially, and then some men who sparked a movement over bus rides that then became a global phenomenon of social change. I'm hopeful. I'm encouraged that nothing splendid will ever be achieved except by those who will dare believe that something inside them is superior to the circumstances that they face.
I take that in the close of our program, I take that to mean it's okay to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest on the World House every Thursdays is Johnny Mack. I'm going to have to bring Johnny back on the program for another 2-hour special one of these days with just Johnny, because his conversations and his thinking is so rich for all of us. Johnny, thank you once again for being here.
Thank you, Jesse.
Can't wait to see you next week.
Be well.
This is Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, it will be Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton.